and welcome again to the Skill Work Forum, where we gather and talk about industry issues and challenges, really everything surrounding the skilled trades and those that need skilled tradesmen to advance your company forward. And as always, my name's Tim. I'm joined with my partner here, Brett. And today we're going to really try to answer a question, one that we hear probably on almost a daily basis from our clients or the people in this space. And it's simply this: why is it so hard? Why are we having such a hard time finding good employees right now? And it doesn't matter what sector you're in, across the country and all of the sectors that you look at. Everybody's having challenges, but particularly in the space that we focus on, in the skilled trade space. So why are we having such a difficult time finding employees? And then maybe some ideas as we try to answer that on what you might be able to do to take some action steps around that.
Yeah, for sure. So, we'll kind of start out, this, I don't know exactly when this episode will come out, but there was a recent June jobs report. This is early July, so I assume in a few weeks this will be out there. But so it'll still be the most recent jobs report. Basically, the economic backdrop of that still shows, really a strong growth. We had a labor market that added another 372,000 jobs. Those are non-farm jobs, so that'd be, construction, manufacturing, right. All those types of things. It was a little bit down from the previous month, but really not much. I think the previous month was about 390,000. So, we spend a lot of our time, we tend to watch real closely, the manufacturing specifically, and a little bit in the construction as well. But manufacturing specifically added, 29,000 new manufacturing jobs, which that number was up, relative, quite a bit, really double almost, from the month before. So, that's an indication to us, and I think anybody that would evaluate the information, that you're continuing to see a growth and even, I would say, a surge in demand for goods and services. We've been dealing with this post-pandemic, supply issues for a while. Everybody in almost anything, whether it's, something on the grocery store shelf, or, my wife's a designer, very involved in home new construction, and, they continue to have a lot of issues with garage doors and windows and just delays and delays and delays. So there's still a strong push, which is probably why we're seeing, jobs get added.
Yeah, and so you mentioned construction. The construction sector, it kind of was more flat month over month, so there was some jobs added, but a little bit, relatively speaking, a little flat in that sector. But if you look at both manufacturing and construction, there's still close to 1 million job openings. So these are people that would be, jobs available, that if the right candidate came along, they'd be hired. Over 1 million job openings across manufacturing alone, another 400,000 in construction across the country. And there's just not enough candidates to fill those jobs. We hear it all the time. As a matter of fact, across looking at all sectors, 5.5 million more job openings than there are people to be able to fill them. So it's those numbers are, very imbalanced.
Yeah, no, they're a bit staggering. They've been that way, now for a while, and so it's an interesting. We're not economists. We live in the same world you do, and we see the same things, and we try to study it to understand it on how it's going to impact our clients and the folks that we put to work. And so, but there's a kind of an interesting dynamic right now in that you have a robust labor market, yet if you're, you would have to be living under a rock to not know that right now we have a huge inflation issue. We just had numbers come out this week that showed that the current inflation rate is at 9.1%. That is the highest.
4 decades, I heard. The highest number in
early 80s,
40 years.
I think 81 or something, about the year I was graduating high school, or just close to it. Anyway.
Yeah, I was born in the 80s, so I don't know what you're saying. 4 decades, though.
You've aged badly if you were born in the 80s.
Yeah, but 40 years, so.
Yeah, 9.1%. And so, that's there's a strong indication. Again, we're not sitting here to, predict the economy, but at that type of inflation rate, they were projecting about an 8.8. I think 8.6 was the previous number. And so there's a strong chance that the Federal Reserve is going to have to increase rates, which pushes us potentially closer to recession issues. Those consumer goods is really where you're seeing the big impact, which is everything from gas prices to food cost, and I just read I'm getting ready to go on a little trip. I saw where airline tickets are up about 34%. I know you were dealing with the same thing a while back. So it's real stuff that real people are dealing with on a daily basis, and just overall, consumer confidence is not good right now.
No, it's not. And it's crazy how little things all come together to impact you. Like even, stopping pick up a few things at the grocery store. It's like, what? It really is getting real now. And so we talk about these imbalances, the surging labor market with these inflationary pressures and rates climbing and so forth. There's a big imbalance going on right now. And what it's caused and why it makes sense for this podcast and for our audience is this is just turbocharged the competition for workers. Competition for workers was already fierce. Now it's just it's going even more so. More competition, more challenges, and it's especially hard to fill positions like many in the skilled trades. So the biggest questions that we hear from our clients and people that work in this space, why is finding and hiring good employees so hard? And some of these things are going to be pretty obvious, maybe some not so much, but we're going to give you a few of the drivers and maybe some actions that you might be able to take to help mitigate some of those challenges.
Yeah, no. So, the obvious one, is, or at least obvious to us, is that it's just a supply and demand issue.
Right.
It is. There are way more jobs than there are workers, and we see it very closely in the skilled, trades, the more blue collar type jobs. It's almost growing because they can't find the front end labor, so therefore they're automating, which is putting more pressure in finding more of the skilled talent, and that's just driving this huge demand. So those that have those skills, that talent, they have a lot of options right now, and so the competition to try to find those individuals and get them where you need them is higher than ever. Good control technician or a great mechanic, whatever the case may be, their ability to seek higher wages, to seek certain kind of benefits, certain kind of work environment.
Negotiate individually.
They basically are, as we say in the real estate market, it's a buyer's market or a seller's market. Well, right now it's the same thing. Right now it's an employee market, and the employer is trying to try to figure out how to kind of work in this current situation. On top of it, we have now fully moved ourselves in. We've been going through, over the years, Tim, we've talked about, the concept of a gig economy and the impact of the way people view work in a gig economy, meaning like, where you're somewhat your own employee, like an Uber driver, you're basically your own boss to a certain extent.
For people that don't know, I used to think it had something to do with technology gig, but it's really like a job. I got a gig.
Yeah, I got a gig. And so, but as we've now spent quite a few years in that mindset, and so the employee mobility and migration, there was a recent article ADP put out that said that 7 in 10, so 70% of workers have considered a major career change this year. I think the significance of that is it's now in the mindset. There was for years the baby boomers, who we'll talk about here in a minute, and some of the retirement on that. They were more likely to stay put. They for whatever reason, whether it was loyalty, whether they just didn't have the same opportunities. But now, between this huge demand, this huge opportunity, the ability to kind of negotiate your own deal, and then a willingness to do it, you've got a bit of a perfect storm, as we would say.
Yeah, so what can you do about it? We thought of a few actions you might be able to take. First of all, and we deal with this every day, all day, in placing skilled tradesmen across the country, and they are very much becoming aware of their ability to negotiate, and primarily focused on wages and benefits. So our recommendation to you is be very competitive with your wages. Make sure You're not just looking inwardly at your own pay scale. You need to be at the top or near the top of the wage scale because you're competing with these guys, and their barometer, good, bad, or otherwise, on most of the time is what that hourly wage rate is for those that are hourly workers. So we talked about this. This is another recommendation in a previous podcast recently that when you do get them, you need to make sure your onboarding and your training process is world class, first rate. First impressions are lasting. If they come there and it's not great and they don't feel part of the team and they don't get ingrained into your culture quickly, there's plenty of opportunities, and they're probably getting contacted by recruiters or firms or other companies all the time. So you need to make sure that you make a good first impression. Gone are the days where they ought to be glad they have a job and they need to show up and be grateful for the job. You can keep that mentality, and I understand it, believe me. I understand that work ethic. But if you keep that mentality and you don't recognize that they have options, it's going to be to your own detriment. So flexibility not only includes wages, but also benefits. Give and take is crucial. Get creative. Have flexible work schedules. Maybe that doesn't work for you, but maybe you can change up the pattern of your work or give people the opportunity to work every other weekend or things like that. Don't be rigid in your approach. Consider providing a lot of training opportunities and upskill. Give your guys the motivation that if they stay there and they stay engaged, they're going to get the opportunity to get these other skills. So invest in your employees. Maybe provide some bonus and incentives to maintaining good attendance or being here for 6 months or a year or something like that, instead of saying, you'll get rewarded at 5 years. Maybe make that horizon a little shorter. The other thing is don't forget your current staff. As you're doing these things and you're focused on bringing in new people, don't forget your current staff because they also are looking around. You don't want to be leaking out the back end when you're filling up the front end with new employees. So those are some ideas you might want to think that to help fight this uber competitive environment that we're in right now.
No doubt. And so, another thing, we're not going to take a position one way or the other on this, but there are, in this workforce, there are still people that are in pandemic mindset and they're just not ready to re-enter the workforce. There's still, a bit of in some percentage, I'll probably show my cards a little bit here, but, I don't even know who gets tested for COVID anymore, but obviously some people do because they keep reporting that people have COVID, and so and I don't want to downplay it. I know that for a lot of people it's been a really tough and serious situation, been a challenge for all of us to manage through for sure, and some people have had a lot more tragedy and personal, but there is still a bit of a fear rate. I just had dinner with a guy last night, Tim, who he owns a business here in the town where we live, and he had a guy, as we're at dinner, one of his employees texted him and says, "Hey, I tested positive for COVID, but I feel okay. I want to come to work tomorrow." And they were like, "Well, the problem is the 3 guys that you work with, they're not comfortable working with you unless you have a negative test." So there's still this, we've somewhat ingrained it into people now to have this kind of this natural fear of that. So what that creates is then a desire to work from home, because now they've figured out a different way. They've somewhat, been able to isolate, and it's not even necessarily an isolation for some people. They've just learned, a different way to work, and they
more convenient. And and you talked earlier, Brett, about these guys that are changing careers. Maybe the guy that used to work and be a mechanic at your plant, he's got a different career now that he can work remote from. And those guys are you can't find them anymore because they're doing something else.
No, they've figured out. And there's some reality. There's some this pandemic, which we're still probably be dealing with the effects of it, and the impact to the workforce and the way offices go to work and the way facilities operate, and everything is probably, some of it's here with us maybe for forever. Other things will kind of come and go as more things open back up. But one of the real things is things like childcare, that families have had a real challenge through, when you've got uncertainty with school closings and different mandates and that type of thing, trying to manage childcare and those kinds of things, became a real issue that has, as Tim, you'll talk about in a minute, some of the actions, but that that has created a real challenge, for people. And so, there was a recent survey, and we were talking about this with a group of guys the other day, just about there's been a little bit of shift where in some unhealthy ways, some companies, the fragment of the employees are driving the agenda of the company versus the company culture driving, and there's there's a little bit of a battle going on right now in that. And there was a recent Business Insider survey said that 39% of employees were clear about quitting their job if they are not given the opportunity to work from home.
4 out of 10.
Yeah. And so it's kind of it depends on how you could read different attitude into that. Like, if I don't get this, as opposed to I would like to have the opportunity.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so that's a good point, because some people may not have no option, so it's not like everybody's just, I'm going to take my ball and go home sort of attitude. So what are some actions you can take to combat this? Well, we're talking about a huge cultural swing and world, really, across the world. So what can you realistically do to confront these sort of things? There's not a ton you can do to change the mindset of somebody that maybe is pursuing that approach. But I will say this, consider your internal policies and some of the things maybe you did in reaction to the pandemic or some other things as a kind of an immediate action that, looking back in retrospect, which we really strongly encourage, always taking a look back and seeing if what you did was the right thing, maybe you need to change. So take a look at your policies, and do they really align with your culture, your mission, your values, your goals, your objectives, what's best for your company, your client, the rest of the employees? Align your policies. So take a look at that. And maybe you need to adjust and change to be more open and more accommodating to your employees, perhaps. Or maybe it's like, well, this is kind of the way we're going, and perhaps this is maybe not a good fit. So you take a look at that. I would just always say, regardless, take a look at your policies, make sure they align with your culture. Recognize what you can and you can't do. If you're a manufacturing plant that runs 3 shifts, you can't have, and you need that mechanic to be there on site. Work from home is just not a realistic thing for you. Be real with your employees and say, that doesn't work in our model. That's just not something that we can do here. Be honest with them. Adjust and be as flexible as possible, but within reason. I think, Brett, the point you make is a good one. The tail can't wag the dog. And we've seen that so many places, that big, successful companies are skewing their whole business model based on maybe a point in time response to pressure from the outside. And good, bad, or otherwise, we're not judging it. We're just saying, hey, you want to take some actions, take a look at these things, adjust as you can, but also maybe take a look at, hey, this is the reality of our business, and we're going to have to find employees that fit our culture and are behind what we're trying to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, companies, as a leader of a company, it's our responsibility to drive the culture that we want, and so we have to decide, and not everybody's going to fit into that. And companies got to get comfortable, of building a great culture that people want to be a part of and they'll buy into, as opposed to trying to. It's the old adage, if you try to please everybody, you'll in the end please no one. And so companies are. It's an interesting landscape that we're managing through. So the next one is, even when you find employees, when you find that person that you've been looking for, they don't pan out. Many job seekers, just don't have the right skills or the aptitude of what you're looking for. There's we see this, and hear from it a lot in the companies that we work with. But the World Economic Forum, just projected that by 2022, which is the year we're in, almost 54% of all employees would require reskilling and upskilling to cope with the changing work requirements. We talk about it a lot, Tim, and we see it in our business, where we're focused in the skilled trades, and that is that these facilities, specifically manufacturing, they are investing more and more and more in automation, and they're having to, for a variety of reasons. They've got to be more efficient, they've got to be more flexible, they're struggling to find the front-end talent. Well, that, by default, the guarantee of that, which is why we're seeing this need to upskill in this case is that baby boomer mechanic that's been with you for a long time. All of a sudden, may or may not have the skills to do that without going back and getting some additional training and that type of thing. So we see it live, right now. We see more and more demand for higher skill, and even with our company, we're working to upskill and provide certification training, for our folks that we put out in the field. So, another interesting thing, and if you're watching this and you live in Elkhorn, I'm running for Elkhorn Schools, so I'll see if I can get any votes today, Tim. And so the
Elkhorn School Board, Brett Elliott.
I bring that up because it says 45% of HR professionals found it hard to hire candidates that have the right critical thinking and problem-solving skill. Now, again, being somebody that's running a school board, I'd be here to tell you that it's because we don't teach critical thinking anymore. We teach
critical
take
theories.
These tests and take
just
this.
say that critical theories, but not critical thinking.
And so, but we're seeing it now. We're living. We're taking what we've done, and now we're seeing it start to come to fruition. And so it makes it harder to find talent. We talk about it, Tim, here with our internal employees here in the home office of, I look for young talent who will ask questions and challenge things because they're thinking as opposed to just doing. Sometimes I just want them to do what we want them to do, but really in the end, the ones that are going to grow and be the great next leaders are the ones that can critically think. And so, kind of the last part of this one is, 43% struggle to even demonstrate professionalism and work ethic. I think on the last podcast, Tim, we talked about, or one of the last couple, there was top 10 things you could do with no skill.
Right.
And that was attitude, show up for work on time, have great work effort. That's kind of what we're talking about here, that right now what HR is saying that, hey, almost half, not quite, but almost half, just struggle to do that. And in some cases, unfortunately, they have the skills, but they don't have the attitude.
Yeah. So what can you do? One thing I thought of as you were saying that is that consider professional development as well as skills development for your employees. We put a lot of emphasis here on holistic development of our employees. We want them to develop critical thinking skills, professionalism, how to engage in conflict in a healthy way, how to communicate both written and oral. We do all of these sort of things as developing the holistic person because honestly, the young people that we're getting out of schools, colleges, degreed people coming out of our higher end universities, they just really have a difficult time with these things. And the culture is really everybody's managing things through their smartphones, and the ability to critically think or to have challenge or confrontation. So consider looking to train your employees in that regard. Give them other type of training other than skills training. But I would say this too, as you're bringing in new employees, when you find them, you want them to pan out because they're so hard to find. You want them to pan out. So as you're vetting, make sure you consider skills testing as well as personality and aptitude testing, both. Consider having panel interviews where the stakeholders that individual will be working with directly are intimately involved in the hiring process. Make sure that they are aware of who that person is so there's buy-in from the get-go. One thing I've read I thought was a pretty good idea is consider a trial period with your employees. Give them the opportunity to say, hey, 60 days, come in and try it, see if it's a good fit for you, see if it's a good fit for us, no strings attached, and give them the ability because people just want options. It's the Amazon world. I want to look at reviews and change my mind. That kind of feeds into a lot of what our model is, where we basically put our employees at your location for a set period of time. And if it doesn't work out for our employee or you, no harm, no foul. We move on or find a better fit for them or for you. So the other thing, again, I'll go back to this. Have a great onboarding and training process. Make it world-class so that you can make sure that those employees you bring on do pan out. You can't afford to miss. It's like it's a kind of baseball game. You only get a few swings every game. You get one that comes right over the center of the plate. You can't afford to miss. You got to hit the ball. Those are some actions.
Yep. So, the kind of the last, one we're going to touch on today and on this podcast is, one of the things, I have this conversation, with a variety of people, and they'll say, well, where'd everybody go? Where are the people? It's like, how can we have 5.5 million open jobs? It's like, did they all disappear? Where'd the people go? And I don't have the answer to that, but I do know there are some things, and there is definitely some indications that we may not have enough people to fill all the jobs, which is going to force other things, and we'll have to react to it through automation and whatnot. But
Right.
One of the specifics of that is, we talk about it a lot, Tim, because it impacts the skilled trades, probably as much as anything. And that is this baby boomer exodus, or the baby boomer retirement. And so it's real. I mean, you can debate, there's some numbers that get thrown around, like all numbers, that could be somewhat right or wrong. But the fact is, it's having a significant impact, specifically in the skilled trade. As you have 3 to 1, you have 3 people of baby boomer who are leaving the skilled trade space to 1 that's coming behind them. I don't have to be a genius to figure out that that's a problem, and so that somewhere there's got to be a correction. You've got to be a give. You either got to get more of the ones, or you've got to need less of, or there's got to be some type of an adjustment. The baby boomer retirement, it increased significantly during COVID. It just did. You had an aged population. They were at higher risk as some things closed down, as they were not going to work, and then just decided that, I'm going to retire in a year anyhow.
Yeah.
Why wait or a couple years? It is a fact. I don't know how many exactly are retiring today, but you'll hear a stat out there. A lot of times you'll hear that there's 10,000 baby boomers reaching retirement age. That doesn't mean they're retiring at 65, but that's a fact, that you have 10,000 a day. And I think it's for the next 10 years or something like that, probably based around whatever that age group is. But
Yeah.
so they are reaching. Whether they retire or not, that's up to them. But a significant number of them are. So that's creating an issue. The population growth, both here in the U.S. and across the world, is at its lowest in history. And so I know
That's a big statement. I mean, this is in recorded history. Population rates globally are the lowest they've ever been.
Yep.
We're not populating the planet at the pace that we have
Yep.
in the past.
Yeah, which basically, is saying that exactly, that you've got an aging population that we just talked about. So your death rate to your birth rate is less. So we have less people. I think in the U.S., in 2021, I want to say it was 0.1% population growth. It's the lowest ever since it's been recorded,
Yeah.
which I assume is a long time. So a very, very small growth in that. And then just a lack, we just talked about it a second ago, that 3 to 1 number. So lack of workers entering traditional trades and the skilled trade jobs. And we've done some podcasts on this before. It's really more of we have a perception issue, in the skilled trades. And until we overcome that, it's going to be hard to attract, an 18, 19, 20-year-old or 25-year-old to get into the skilled trades when they've kind of been told to look at that as something lesser. Now, I can give you 100 reasons why you should look at it, but there's still this perception that it's a less valued, trade or less valued profession.
Right.
And then just the overall, we just talked about it. The work ethic is waning. There's just it's the old poster that was in every high school when you and I were in high school, Tim, that said, work smart, not hard. And I don't think we intentionally meant to tell people that working hard was a bad thing, but we kind of did it, and we at least a portion of the population. I think, Tim, you noted, back in the day, if you go back, Tim's more of a history guy than I am, and so the Roman Empire, it was the idea of laying around and being leisurely. That meant you were of you were
You've
elite.
arrived.
Yeah.
It's the goal, the aspiration.
Yeah. So
until they got invaded by people that didn't have that.
Who had some work ethic, and,
Yeah.
and you can check, you can validate, you can make sure that we're accurate on this, but I don't think the Roman Empire exists anymore. So it didn't work out, so well for them.
No.
And it isn't going to work out so well for us if we don't, understand and embrace, that, a hard day's work. That doesn't mean, you got to, crawl under your truck, or you can if that's what you want to do, but just putting in and having a lot of respect for the opportunity.
So these demographics and culture, this is our last issue. Some actions you can take, again, some of these are consistent training and supporting your local vocational technical schools, pushing for that in your local schools. Look for opportunities for next generation workers. Get behind and celebrate. Just like somebody makes a selection to go to a four-year college, we should celebrate and acknowledge and get behind a young man or woman that decides to go into the trades. So we need to continue just to press that and make sure that that's something that the culture gets behind in general. So it's okay to choose something like that. So the more voices that say that, I think the more that we'll have an opportunity to pull this trend the other direction. The other thing is, I'd say consider intern program. There's a great program the Department of Defense has that we are part of now. It's called Skill Bridge. It's an opportunity to take people coming out of the military and put them into your workforce. It's a 6-month paid internship program. I encourage you to go look for it. Look at skillbridge.com. I think it's a DoD program. Skillbridge, all one word. It's a great opportunity for you to find and bring on some of these people and try to counter what's going on in our culture and the demographics. So all of this to say, listen, there's a challenge out there. It's turbocharged. We have economic headwinds. There's no doubt that we're facing some challenges. It's going to get, and I'm an optimistic guy, and Brett is too. I mean, we are hopelessly optimistic guys. We think that's the way you should live your life. But the bottom line is we're also realists and look at the headwinds that we're facing right now. It's probably going to get worse before it gets better. And that's the truth. Saying the truth doesn't mean that don't think there's anything you can do about it, though. There's going to be a shrinking workforce. Those are realities, but you can do things to be competitive. Hopefully we've given you some things to think about, including this idea of reaching out to a company maybe like ours to help you every day, 24/7, 7 days a week. We focus on finding great skill work guys, candidates that we put in your company. That's what we do, and we think we do it very well. So we can help you with that. We may not be able to solve all your problems, but we can help you do that. And this is a turbocharged environment. I like that phrase. And everything counts. Everything counts. So make sure you're doing everything to make the difference for your company's future. Any final thoughts, Brett, before we wrap it up?
No, I mean, it's just, it's a challenging workplace out there. It's tough to find the talent. This has been on CEOs and leadership, for the last several years. Their number one challenge to meeting their goals is to find the talent that they need to do that. And so more than ever, as Tim said, you've got to, all of these things, hopefully there's some things in here that you can apply as opposed to just, going, well, what are we going to do?
Right. It's always something you can do. You can always take action, move forward. So thanks for joining us here on the Skill Work Forum. Hopefully this was helpful to you. Just always want to remember, our great partners that we support. Texas Boys Outdoors, they do great work down there. Roy and the team get disadvantaged kids. They support law enforcement, first responders, military, get them out hunting and fishing in the great outdoors. It's just a great team. It's a great program. You can catch them on the Pursuit channel, YouTube. We always want to say shout out to our guys there and take a listen or watch their latest episodes. Awesome. Also, we have another podcast that we do here through Skill Work focused on you, the skilled tradesman, if that's you out there. Take a listen to a podcast. You can find it anywhere that podcasts are streamed. It's called The Proud Skilled Worker. And we interview guys that are in the trade. So even if you're a business owner and you want to know what your guys really think and what's their heartbeat, take a listen to The Proud Skilled Worker. So we encourage those two things. And until next time, pray God blesses you and have a great day.